Okay, so the obvious topic for today is Happy Lhabab Duchen. So this is a multiplying merit day 100 million times. So I think we can be inspired to just engage in virtue today. I looked up the meaning of Lhabab Duchen, and it literally means the great occasion of divine descent. So that's very inspiring. I found a bit more information about it than we heard this morning from Venerable Jigme and her motivation. So I'm going to read this. It's quite interesting. So it's on this day that Buddha Shakyamuni descended from the God realm of the 33, and he was there to give teachings to benefit the gods in the desire realms and to repay the kindness of his dear mother. This is considered to be one of the greatest deeds of the Buddha among the 8 other deeds, and it's part of the Buddhist tradition to engage in celebrating this. So Buddhists all over the world today are celebrating this. When Shakyamuni Buddha's mother died, she was actually born as a deva in this God realm of the 33. And this realm is presided over by the Brahminical god Indra. And after the Buddha attained enlightenment, he went to this God realm to teach the Abhidharma to his mother and other celestial beings. And after 3 months of teaching there, the Buddha decided to return to his disciples and lay followers. And he made this descent from this heaven on a ladder. And this place that he descended to is actually in Sankashya, which is modern Uttar Pradesh in India. So the Dharmapada records that when the Buddha was ready to return, Indra made 3 ladders for the Buddha's descent. The ladders connect from the summit of Mount Meru to this Sankashya city. And the middle ladder was made all of jewels. That's the one that the Buddha came down on. The right ladder was of gold, and this was used by Indra. And the left ladder was made of silver, and this was used by Brahma. And at the time, Indra and Brahma were depicted as Buddha's attendants. So the most important message of this day has come to represent a certain story that I've actually never read before, and it's about this particular nun. So there are all these crowds of people waiting in this city at the base of the ladders, waiting for the Buddha to come down. And there was this particular, according to the Chinese narratives, there's a particular nun by the name of Utpali, who vowed that she would be the first person to greet the Buddha when he descended from this ladder. But of course, just being a nun in those times, there's absolutely no chance that she was going to have this opportunity. She was going to be pushed aside by all of these kings and important people and other people. However, because of her great devotion, she transformed into a universal monarch, and she was accompanied by 7 treasures and the most elaborate troops, and thus she was able to secure the front place at the base of the ladder. And she was the first to greet the Buddha, and because of her devotion, which he saw, then he predicted her future enlightenment. So as such, this event today, Lhabab Duchen, also represents the prediction of all of our enlightenment. So, we're headed in the right direction. And then Venerable Chodron has given us some other things to think about on this day. She says, when a Buddha is here on the earth in a Nirmanakaya form, this is a Buddha who turns the wheel of Dharma and sets the Dharma in motion in a historical era. So it's an incredible time of good fortune. We have tremendous merit to be born at the time. People, not us. Some people had tremendous merit to be born at the time of the Buddha. In our case, we didn't have this fortune, and so we have the fortune now to receive the Buddha's teachings from a pure lineage that goes right back to the Buddha. So today she says this is a time where we should really get quiet and think carefully with gratitude about all the kindness that the Buddha has given in giving us these very pure teachings that is going to get us out of this suffering samsaric state. And then to think, where would we all be without the Buddha? Well, I know where I would be. I'll just speak for myself. I'd be thrashing around in the mess I've been making. And she reminds us that there's many places in the universe where the Dharma doesn't exist. And in the past, there are times where the teachings just simply aren't present. And so if we're born in that kind of place, there's absolutely no possibility of encountering the Dharma, no possibility of getting out of our suffering state. So then she says, it's really a time of rejoicing that we've met the Dharma, to have this deep sense of gratitude, and to be sure that we don't take the teachings for granted. So that's a key one here, I think. And she lists some things that we might do today to celebrate and to really get this feeling of gratitude in our heart. So one thing, and we'll make sure that this link is on the descriptive paragraph, there's a teaching that Venerable gave about repaying the kindness of our parents. That's one topic you can reflect on. Then you can take the 8 Mahayana precepts, and if you don't know what that is, or you've forgotten, or you're interested, it's described in the Blue Book, Pearl of Wisdom, Book 1. You can do the Shakyamuni Buddha meditation, which is also in the Blue Book. And you can watch Venerable's teachings on taking refuge, which will also make sure that link is in the video. And then it's also a nice time to make offerings to the Triple Gem and to your teachers. So that's a wonderful way of repaying the kindness. And so you may think, if you're not yet a Buddhist or you're just interested and you're hearing this talk and you're wondering, well, how can I make merit? I don't really know what you're talking about yet. I found a really wonderful story in the CBC News. This is Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And this was frontline news, front page news about 3 days ago. And it's so inspiring, and it's just people, sharing their good heart. So the fact that this story is from Canada, forget that. This could be anywhere. It should be in every country, and I know it is. It's just people just reaching out to one another. And by doing this, we're creating merit. And, you don't have to be a Buddhist to create merit. So here's the story. This woman telling the story, her name is Salma, and she's from Toronto. And one day last week, she was riding the subway. And they noticed that there was this man on the subway who was looking really, really troubled. And they saw him just throw down his skates. I guess he had some inline skates with him. And he sat down in front of her, and he just put his head in his hands and kept saying, "Oh my God." He just kept saying this over and over again. So pretty soon a fellow passenger sort of leans toward him, and it's a Russian guy. And this Russian guy, it's true, it's in this story, says to him in a very thick Russian accent, "Are you okay?" And the fellow responded that he's having a terrible headache and he's running late for an interview. So then the Russian fellow just patted him on the back and said he was going to be okay. And then there was a Middle Eastern woman sitting beside this fellow, and this woman is wearing a hijab. And she took out a juice box from her kid's backpack, and she gave him the juice box, and she told him to drink it and that it would make him feel better. And that by the time he gets to the interview, he'll be just fine. So this is the woman sitting next to him. And then the man thanks her profoundly and thanks everyone for caring, and he says he's extremely nervous about this interview. Then this woman who's telling the story, Salma, she's an employer, so she reassures this fellow that everything's going to be okay. And she recommended that he not make excuses about being late for the interview, and that he just simply says he's late and he apologizes. And then the other people on this train car, this subway train car, are all noticing this interaction. And pretty soon other people on the train car giving him advice about how to do a good interview. And then the Russian fellow told him to walk in confidently and tie his hair back so that he could look good. And then a Chinese teenager sitting in this area, she takes this tie from her hair and she hands him her little elastic band. And she said, he'll look really good if he puts his hair back. And then the Muslim woman then told him, if you smile at these people giving an interview, you'll do much better. In fact, she said, I've been doing interviews for a long time, and we usually give jobs to people who smile. And you look like a trusted person when you smile. So the train finally gets to the stop, and everyone in the train car sort of claps as he gets off, and they wish him well. So the end of this story, which is just funny, the end of the story is, now if this isn't the ultimate Canadian experience, short of a beaver walking into a bar holding a jar of maple syrup, I don't know what is. But you know what? This is not a Canadian story. This happened to be reported by the Canadian press. I could easily see this happening anywhere in this country. People look out for each other. They do. We especially have to make an effort to do that now. We have to look out for people who are looking distressed and just approach them, and see what's going on. These people did. And can you imagine how that person felt? So we don't have to be Buddhist to create merit. We can think of this story, and maybe today you'll encounter people who look like they need some help. Let's do that. Despite the fact it's going to create 100 million times more merit. That's a nice side effect. But just the fact that reaching out to someone in this way makes us feel good. We're reaching out to someone else, we're leaving behind our self-centered thinking. What a relief that is. And it just helps all over. Let's do it.